Hello, agentpreneurs, and welcome back to the Daily List Report. I'm Randy Shiozaki. I am the co-founder of ListReports, and I am your host for this show. Really excited about today. We have got my all-time favorite guest. We've got Gia Goodrich back on the show. She's going to tell an amazing story of the last show that we did together, which if you didn't see, we're going to link to it right now. So definitely check that out. And of course, while you're here, if you like this content, please consider subscribing and check the little bell to be notified. Real quick, Gia's an amazing YouTuber. We're going to talk about this on the show. So definitely check her channel out, subscribe. It's really great content. It's super useful, to be honest. Really how to look good on camera and all kinds of tips. She's a professional photographer. She's been doing this for a long time. She's got amazing work. Also, definitely check her out on Instagram. So Gia.Goodrich, we'll link to that below as well. And make sure that you follow her on Instagram so you don't miss any of that amazing content. So what I'm gonna do right now is I'm gonna stop talking. I'm gonna bring Gia on. So Gia, welcome back to the show.
Hi, Randy. I am so glad to be here. I love you. And being asked back was just like so exciting for me. So I'm excited to do this.
Are you kidding me? This is so fun. I mean, we talked about this, right? So we're like, in all honesty, I've talked to a lot of people, but I would say you're probably my first YouTube friend as well. And so like, that's pretty cool. So I'm just happy to have you back on. And why don't we do this, Gia, right? Not everybody saw the first episode. I hope they all have. And if not, they will after today, know who you are. But why don't you take a quick minute just to introduce yourself again and talk about a little bit of your, what you do and sort of your purpose in life.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name's Gia Goodrich, and I am a photographer and director by trade. But most of that time has been spent in helping people develop that thing. So whether it's for a still image, helping them exude with that confidence and power and charisma. And now for the last year or so, I've been helping creators do that on video because, with COVID has taught us nothing. It's that our world has suddenly transformed to a place where we need to be generating our own leads. We need to be building our own personal brand. And so what I love to help people do is figure out that way to really tap into that unique, authentic awesomeness that they are, and then show up with that and be able to create content around that.
Absolutely. I think it's a great mission, and it's so consistent, obviously, with what you know and what you do every day, and that's how you build, I think, a really authentic brand. Now, so let's talk about this, okay? I love this story.
Okay.
This makes me just so happy, right? So Gia, as I've done shows and we've talked about YouTube or content creation, right? We talk a lot about you got to commit to it, and you just got to put in the work, and it's value first, and sometimes that value isn't immediately rewarded. And for some people, it's never rewarded. Let's be honest, right? Like this is a bit of a slog, and you're recording and you're creating and you're thinking about it. And one of my philosophies, Gia, in life is to say yes, right? And so especially earlier in my career, somebody would be like, hey, there's some, networking event like in Santa Monica. And I'm like, yes, I'm there, and I'll go, right? Because you don't know what's going to happen, and it's really about maximizing your opportunities for something that could sort of change the trajectory of what you're doing. So I think you might have a story about this, and I would love for you to share it. Not because we know how to replicate it, right? But because if you have that attitude of saying yes, these things can happen.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you aren't familiar with me, my YouTube journey was that the first essentially 2 years, I was making progress, but not in the way that I thought it would happen. And this is something that a lot of us have. It's called the optimism bias in psychology, where we have this kind of magical thinking of like, I'm going to be the breakout star. This is going to happen. Now, what I would add to that is we also simultaneously have this like deep insecurity, pessimism point. So it's like, if you don't see it, like just making amazing progress, then you're like, oh my gosh, I suck. I should never do this again. I'm embarrassed, done. And over those last 2 years, there were waves with me where I would be like, yeah, this is great. And then just totally fall off because I was feeling insecure and just like it wasn't happening the way I thought it would. And then I was asked to do this interview the first time. And I share that same sentiment, Randy, where it's just about trusting your gut and knowing that you aren't going to know what the outcome is necessarily. I could not in any way have guessed that the outcome of doing this interview with you the first time would trigger an algorithm to spike one of my videos that now has over 400,000 views, and to make a lot of ads revenue from it. Like that video has made over $8,000, and I wasn't even monetized before we did this interview. So I am 100% of that mindset of saying yes and trusting your gut, even though you have no idea what the outcome is going to be. It's like this idea of planting seeds, and then you plant enough and you wait and you're patient and you keep the faith. And then sure enough, one of those will sprout into this giant bamboo situation that you'll be struggling because it's just like growing so crazily that you'll be complaining that now you have too much of it. Well, hopefully not. I'm trying not to complain.
No. You're definitely not complaining, Gia. I love these stories. I love this stuff. We've talked about this, Gia. You're sitting there, right? And all of a sudden, like, what happens? Like, your subscriber count just starts exploding. Your phone, like, what is this like?
Yeah, so I have this app on my phone, like the YouTube app, and I just all of a sudden started getting these notifications for comments. And I started looking at it and thinking like, oh my gosh, this has like 10,000 views. Oh my gosh, I comment after comment after comment. And the thing is, like, there's so much of it that's exciting, but there's also this point of like, oh my gosh, like all these people are seeing my video.
Yes.
I'm embarrassed. What do I think? I don't know. I wasn't, like, my hair was kind of crazy that day, like all of our normal human stuff comes into play. But as it started to increase, I really started to realize the potential in this medium. I mean, I always believed it before, but now really for myself, understanding the power of building a brand, creating a context for what you do, and really showing up as you. And from that video, I have had 4 speaking engagements. I had a really reputable book publisher reach out to me start talking about it. Yeah, I mean, and that's on top of like the monetary stuff, and just so it really has been this crazy journey that I would have had, and definitely that video sat there for 3 months.
Yeah,
so I definitely didn't know that when I recorded the video, when it sat there for a long time, and just it's been this really powerful lesson in trusting your gut, doing the thing, and then just being patient and being optimistic and riding the wave when it hits. But my belief is that it definitely will hit at whatever scale is suitable to you, as long as you really are going by that internal guidance system and you're being persistent.
I think that's so true, right? And value first. So, Gia, I feel like I've quoted this book so many times, but one of the books that was probably the most influential on me is a book called Thinking in Bets, and it's from Annie Duke. She was a professional poker player, right? And
I've never read that. I love that.
Write it down, read it. We'll link to it. Everybody read this book. But here's the point, is that too often we think in terms of outcomes as opposed to inputs. Right? So we do something and we fail and we think of it as a failure, but that's not really the point. The point is, what are the inputs to it? Because there's so many things that affect the outcome, right? You made that video one day, and you made a good video, obviously, and you put it out there. You had the right inputs, even if your hair wasn't perfect, okay? You had the right inputs to it. But there's so many things, the algorithm, the right person, the right people who saw it, this opportunity, whatever. There's so many things that are outside of your control that affect the outcome. So if we spend too much time thinking in outcomes, and by the way, this applies to both failures and success. I can't tell you how many people I know who look at something as a success. And I'll tell you, as an entrepreneur, Gia, I cannot tell you, here's what I tell people. I know more people who have made money and lost their money than have made money and kept their money. And I think that's because of this mistake. They look at the outcome of a business, let's say, and say, I know what I'm doing. This was a success. And the reality is they got lucky. I'm not saying they didn't work hard. I'm not saying it wasn't a good idea. But they got lucky because they're focused on the wrong part of it. So I think that's a really important message just for what we're doing here is, what are the inputs that you're doing? Are you creating good content? Are you value first? Are you getting on camera in your first video going, hey, flashing your phone up, hey, call me for your next real estate deal, right? Or are you actually putting forth content that is value first, believing in your heart that something good will come out of it on whatever scale is relevant to you? Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the key points to really break out from this story, from my own personal experience, is that the reason people found that video, the reason they commented and all of that, and it really grew to this place, and it's still growing, is because I was teaching them something. And I was saying, like, here's my experience as a photographer. Here are the things I can teach you about how to light, how to angle, how to create a background. And they found value in that. And that's what really spurs this type of connection and sharing. Now, on top of that, I added all my meanness, right? I didn't try to hide eccentricities. I didn't try to be super professional. I just showed up as me. And I think the combination of those two factors is what really makes something skyrocket. And I talk about this a lot, where I believe that with the right personal branding, creating the right content, you can truly become a magnet for your ideal client, whatever that is, whomever they are. And I feel like the best way to do that is through video. And I would have had no idea that, for me being a photographer and teaching people with branding, my breakout video would be about Zoom. But
right.
It was, and just understanding like not everything is going to be this really linear line, but I added value. And now I went from just over 1,000 to now over 13,000 subscribers, which is still crazy to me. And, and all of these people that really
such
resonated
a short period
with
of time. I mean, it just straight up.
Yeah. Over 10,000 in a month.
Yes.
And then, because I think it's a little over a month now. Yeah. It's been crazy and awesome,
It's amazing. Thank you for sharing that story. It makes me really happy. And I think that these are the kinds of things, and I think, Gia, you're positioning this in the right way. I hope we both are, right? Which isn't, there's no silver bullet out there. I'm not one to title this video like, how to grow your subscribers by 60,000% in 4 weeks, right? Like, that's a tactic, but that's not my approach. I don't think that's your approach, and that's okay, right? We all have our own approach. And there's games that are played on YouTube, for example, that I don't believe in personally. And I know that our channel could probably be bigger if I followed them, but I'm okay with that. And the metric that I look at most is view time, right? Engagement. I'm building this channel for engagement. I'd rather have 100 people watch all of the video than 10,000 people watch it for 12 seconds, right? I'm all about that, which is why, as I've talked about before, I switched from Facebook to YouTube, because YouTube is an engagement platform and Facebook isn't, in my opinion, right? In our experience. So I think that's great.
And it's also a search engine before anything else. That's why YouTube is so powerful, is that people go to it to find answers. So if you're providing value and answering a question, the odds are people can find you so much better than they would with Facebook or Instagram, where they have to almost have you as a touch point first in order to engage with your content.
It's a really good point, right? So in the industry, right, we call a platform like Google, and obviously YouTube is part of that, an intent-based platform, right? It is intent-based. And of course they have their feed of videos that they recommend to you, right? But it is intent-based. People are going there and searching for something. And we've talked about this too, Gia. That's actually a really relevant way to find out how to create content. Is you go into YouTube and you put in some search words and you see what their suggested results are, because that's a signal as to what people are looking for, and that's a great cue as to what content you might want to create.
Yes, well, and I just made a video about this, about how to grow on YouTube, and that's exactly one of the things that I talk about in that video, is how to really strategically figure out some of these topics. And basically, like, the crux of it is, what are the questions that people need answers to? And, in real estate, for example, as somebody who knows very little about that, there are so many questions. And just thinking about what are these basic things that somebody might, read a term and be like, what does that mean? That if you can provide an answer to, people immediately just love you and look to you as that expert. And actually, one of the videos that I watched on this channel that I love is that interview with Karen Carr, where she was talking about, on her channel, she had only 18 subscribers. And from that got a client who just didn't want to interview, nothing, just wanted to sign paperwork because they had already connected with her and they trusted her. And I think that's the power of really building your brand on this platform. And that's why I think YouTube is one of the best ways to do it. But the long and the short of it is any way that you can do it, any way that you can take yourself from just being another real estate agent, just being another photographer, to being you, and people will gravitate to you because of that.
I couldn't agree more. And I'm just going to pull it up on the screen here for just a quick second. So we'll link to it below. But this is the video right here that Gia is talking about, growth secrets, how to grow on YouTube. And so let's definitely talk a little bit more about that. In fact, why don't you talk a little bit more about what some of these things are that our audience out there should be doing as they're looking at YouTube as a channel?
Yeah, absolutely. And just to be clear, it's not just YouTube. You can do this in other ways, but my firm belief is that YouTube is the best way, right? Well, one of the secrets we already talked about is this idea of not looking for incremental growth. A lot of people think of it from that vantage point, and in my experience, it's not. It's like almost a flat line, and then all of a sudden, boom, something takes off. And then your flat line becomes higher, right? So like I used to get maybe 10 subscribers a day. That was the
Mm-hmm.
rate at which my channel was growing. Then when that video popped, it went up to like 2,000 subscribers in one day. Now it's leveled off, but its new settling point is between 2 and 300 subscribers a day.
Yeah,
So that's
it's
a lot
amazing.
of
It's a
difference
lot.
where it's now
Yeah.
settling. Yeah. So we're not looking for this type of graph that goes up this way. We're looking at something that's a lot more like a staircase, if that makes
Mm-hmm.
sense.
Yep.
And that mental shift is really, I think, imperative in keeping the faith in yourself and just trusting that you planting these seeds is really going to resonate with something and eventually like create growth. The other thing that I really want to talk about, because I feel like this is the big pain point for people, is how to be authentic on camera, how to show up and be charismatic. And a lot of times we're dealing with, especially as professionals, we're dealing with this idea of like the professional. Like I need to show up in a certain way and kind of playing a character that really does not resonate with people. And one of the key factors that I developed, that I'm developing more content around this, but one of the key ideas that I talk about is really understanding your cultural constellation, which is a combination of your experiences, your identity, and your values. So for me, for example, I am a mixed Black, gay, ADHD having millennial, and I believe in equity, and I'm really passionate about the environment and about treating people well, and all of these things. So me really making sure that my content, I'm not hiding that, right? And yes, there are going to be people who are like, I'm
Yes.
not cool with the gays.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I can just be like, hey, well, that's great. See ya. I
Right.
don't think we would resonate with each other anyways.
Yeah.
But by me doubling down on being me, and for you doubling down on being you, that's what's really going to turn you from being one of many to becoming the only one, that magnet that people are really going to resonate with. Because then all of a sudden your content is being created specifically for them. They see, and that I think is the big key that really unlocks a lot for us. So
Can
then
I
the
make a
question
point
is,
there, Gia? Just real quick. Let
yeah,
me make a
yeah,
point there. Well, first thing I have to say, because I'm looking at this camera right here, and I promise you, next time we do a show together, I'm gonna fix my lighting. I'm like, I look like an Oompa Loompa right now. I'm like, man, I look super red, and you look beautiful and perfect, and it's framed nicely. I'm gonna fix this next time. Okay,
yeah.
but here's the real point I wanted to make, Gia. And this applies to so many things. And I feel like a broken record on this, but I will preach this until everybody learns this. You said something critically important there, right? You said, I'm going to be myself. And some people are not going to like that, and that's okay. That is
Yes.
okay. And I see, we're real estate focused here. I see real estate agents who are early in their career go out there and they want to be all things to all people because empathetically, it's a scary business. Because it's really hard to say no to something because you don't know where your next paycheck's going to come from, and you get that deal and then you focus so much on it and then you don't know where your next deal's coming from, and you end up taking bad deals. And I've seen agents do this all the time. And it's such a difficult thing to do, right? Yeah, I mean, even
Yeah.
just getting on camera and just sort of putting yourself out there, being yourself. It's the internet, for God's sake, man. I mean, did you ever see that Wreck-It Ralph 2? There's
No.
this great scene in Wreck-It Ralph 2, okay, where he becomes this YouTube star, whatever they called it, I forgot. It wasn't YouTube, but it was obviously YouTube. And he's just like loving it, and it's awesome. And then he walks into this room, and it was the comments room, right? And he's standing there, and he's just looking at all of the hate, right, and the vitriol that's
Yeah.
out there. And he gets really sad, and it's like, it's a scary place to be because you're putting yourself out there, and you have people out there who aren't going to like you for most likely terrible reasons, right? And
Yeah.
so I don't know what I'm saying here other than, or if there's anything to react to, but it's something that my hope for everybody, and I think you do such a good job of this, Gia, when you talk about, look, we're all beautiful people, right? We all have our own beauty, and let's put this out there in the best possible way. I just hope that people can find the confidence to be able to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that does go with the territory in life, whether or not it's with video, right? The more you stand in your truth, the more you show up, the more space you take up, the more you are inviting criticism. And Brene Brown talks about this in a really wonderful way with this adage of like being in the arena. Like you have all these spectators around you that have all their opinions, but unless they're in there with you, who cares what they're saying? They don't know what it's like. And
right.
I think that that definitely is magnified in video. And I've definitely had some comments where I would love to say, I don't care. I don't even look at them. Well, that's totally not true.
Of
I do look at
course.
them, and sometimes they 100% hurt my feelings. But I know that if you're in a good space, you're not going to be writing crappy things on somebody's YouTube comments, right? So what I try to do is really focus not so much on what they've said, but really focus on the pain that that comment really demonstrates, and just trying to send them like love and good vibes and then move on. And this is one of the things when you are really creating a brand around who you are, you will in a way be insulated by the people who do really resonate with your energy. And that's the thing in the comment sections on especially if you look at that big video. I just had like all these people surrounding me, enveloping me with
Yes.
how things worked for them, how they loved seeing into my messy space, how it made things feel a little bit more relatable. And that's just so much outweighs any sort of negativity that comes with it. But to your point, I think confidence is something that we tend culturally to misunderstand. We tend to think of it as something that you need to have first before you do the thing. And that's like 100% backwards.
Yes.
Competence works on this loop with competency, where you demonstrate competency by doing the thing. And then in turn, that earns you confidence. And then you get more and more feeling confident by doing that thing over and over again. So with me making videos with selling your first home, like all of this stuff, the first time you're doing it, you're going to have no idea what you're doing. You're going to be feeling pretty shaky. But the more you do it, the more you earn that type of confidence. And so to that end, I would say I don't even think you need to feel confident. I think you just need to do it. And the more that you do it, the more that confidence will come.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Well said. Well said. I completely agree with that. Now, I derailed you, right? I think that were there other points you wanted to make with respect to sort of some of these growth strategies?
Well, I love where things are going. So
Me
I'm like
too.
100% up for this. Yeah. The one thing I would say is that when people are getting back to this, but how, right? Like this is a general thing, but how? Like
Yeah.
I'm not super charismatic. I'm not super entertaining. Why would people watch me? How do I make this content? And for me, a lot of that is about addressing mindset. I have some videos around that specifically, so you could totally check out my channel for that. But a lot of it is just understanding that who you are is perfect, and the way you do and say things is perfect for the right audience. So I've seen YouTubers that are totally introverted, totally quiet, take a long time. I'm a little manic, as you can probably tell. So I have to watch their videos on 2 speed, like 2 times fast,
Yes.
because
Oh,
that's just how
I'm
fast my
there.
brain
I'm
works.
there with you.
Right. But there are a lot of people that I mean, even if for somebody who's not like that, I resonate with their content because they remind me of a close friend that I've had. Right. It's just a matter of being able to be authentic. So one key way to do that is by thinking about creating that video for a friend, and a very specific friend that you know. So for me, like I have a great friend who's a hairdresser whose name's Sis, and well, that's my nickname for her. So whenever I'm making a video, I think about making it for her specifically. And so I talk to the camera as if it's her. I answer questions as if it's her. And in that way, people, I think when they watch the video, they get that sense that I'm talking to them like a friend, because I'm using my imagination in that way instead of falling into that professional trap. So there are a lot more tips and tricks in that realm, but I think those are the keys to really get you going and get you creating that content that's going to be meaningful.
Gia, it's a really interesting point, and for whatever reason, I've just never even considered that, right? This idea that you sort of personify the camera, for lack of a better term, right? And you think of
Yeah.
somebody in your life that you're talking to, and man, I just think that's a really good tip. That's gotta be so helpful. And to your other point, and I've made this point before just in doing this show, it was really weird for me to stare at a camera and have a conversation. Like it was a really
Yeah.
weird thing. But it gets so much easier, and now it kind of feels normal, and maybe it'll feel weird to meet you in person one day. I don't know. I hope not. God. But you get over that. But this idea that like I'm talking through this, like on the phone to a friend of mine, and if you can pick the right friend, like I might talk differently to my business partner than somebody on my team versus a friend, whatever it is. But you can find that person in your life It could be, if you're a real estate agent, it could be maybe a successful transaction with a first-time home buyer, and you're making a first-time home buyer video, and you're remembering that person or that couple or whatever in those interactions, and that's how you're having the conversation. That's a really good tip.
Thanks. Yeah, and it really works. And I think using that example is really amazing too. Like we can think about that in terms of our clients, because believe it or not, photography is pretty close to real estate in the way that it operates, right? Like you can get a big job and then have it be a freezing tundra, and you never know where that next thing is going to come from. And it's really about building your network and building your community, so you have this kind of hopefully referral engine coming in. And to me, honestly, doing videos has been a huge part of creating that referral engine.
Yeah.
But for me, like many of you, I've had this history of working with lots of people. So I know what are the go-to things they're going to be weird about when it comes to posing. What are the go-to things they're going to say, like, what do I do with my hands is going to be, a huge thing that they have to say. So I can make a video around that and say, hey, curious about what to do with your hands when you're posing for a picture? I got you. And just talk to them like I would talk to a client, and really addressing their fears and concerns. And also, one thing that I think is really important, especially in this climate where there's a lot of energy swirling around, is being somebody who is inherently empowering. So if you watch my videos, I do the portion where I'm really teaching. And then there's always this portion, you could say maybe around mindset, but it's really about reminding everyone of who they are, right? Reminding people you are a special, amazing, awesome person that has something that needs to be said. You have a gift that you need to add to the world.
We all have
and
a
so
voice.
Get out of your way and just start doing it. And I've had a lot of people really tell me that it's those moments that are deeply resonating with them, because we're in this world where there's so much negative energy. Yeah. So if you can become that source for people, they will really love you and keep coming back to you for that. And if you can combine your authenticity, the value that you add, with this type of empowerment or optimism or positivity, I think that's really the winning mix that everybody has the ability to do.
I love it. Next time we do this show, Gia, what we're going to do is I'm going to hit the record button, okay? And then I'm just going to get off camera and I'm going to let you talk, because this is awesome stuff.
I love you. I know. I do have the gift of gab. One thing I will say that before we do this next time, Randy, is that you should watch my video on how to light for Zoom if you have glasses.
Oh, I saw that one. I will watch it, I promise, and I will do that, because right now I've got natural. See, I took your tip, okay? I came to one of our offices. I'm the only one here, and I've got two big windows in front of me. The problem is there's a street right there, so I'm trying to mute when big trucks go by. And for some reason, like I said, I look like an Oompa Loompa right now. I am red, so maybe Cameron, maybe you can color correct my face, but we'll figure it out.
Well, and that's the thing I think, just, to quickly say to everyone, is that there's always, if you're not feeling confident in the way that you're showing up on video and Zoom and things like that, there are always hacks. And it doesn't need to be me necessarily that you're learning from, but there are lots of people on YouTube to help. And glasses is something where, yes, I totally recommend a big window. That's what I'm in front of right now.
Yes.
But if you have glasses, you have to tweak it a little bit, because if you notice when you're looking down, we don't see that glare. That's because you're not seeing the light source. And so there are ways to really make sure everything is dialed in. Not that you need to, but if it's something that is just, that you're thinking about, you want to show up in a certain way, just knowing that you have those tools. Yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
I'm going to do it.
I'm going to do
it because the contrast here is stark. So wait, I got to point the right. Do that, don't do this. Okay, and if you subscribe to Gia's channel, you will be able to fix all of these things. And actually, I like your approach, right? Because it's super DIY. You're like, hey, I bought this paper lantern and I put a light bulb in it, and it's actually really cool. By the way, I have to tell you this, and we should probably wrap. It's 30 minutes. That light that you have in the back on your little credenza or your file cabinet, I have that exact same light. That's from IKEA from a very long time ago. I recognize that. And I finally, the paper started to get all crackly, but I was like, you know what? We have the same lamp, and that's an old school IKEA lamp. So kudos to us.
I love that. But the trick, and I don't even think this is on my YouTube channel yet. Let me actually show you.
Okay.
So you can see it's business in the front, sweatpants in the bottom. So that this normally is about that bright.
Right.
So we can't actually use it. And so I spent $12 to get this little dimmer switch from a Home Goods or a Home Depot. And then I can dial
Yeah.
it down. So it's just like the perfect thing. So yeah, there are all sorts of like tricks and awesome things that you can do to just like level up that are exciting to me because I'm a nerd. But
I love it. I love it. Well, I think we did it, Gia. This was a great, well, I hope everyone agrees. I think this was a great conversation. I think we can agree. So everybody, please watch Gia. Please subscribe to Gia. Please follow Gia. Please do all of the Gia things because this is awesome, Gia.
Gia crazy.
Let's go Gia crazy. Let's go Gia crazy. Well, we can wrap this show together. So here's what we're gonna do. I've never done this before. Okay, we're gonna say goodbye, and we're gonna just do a little wave, and we're gonna say goodbye to everyone out there. And I'm gonna encourage everybody to share your content because I think it's tremendous, and everyone can learn from it. So, okay, Gia, you ready? I'm gonna say 3, 2, 1, and we're gonna say until tomorrow, everybody.
Okay.
I'm doing it right now.
Down? Oh.
I'm not going to edit this, by the way, so you're going to have to just start waving.
So just me being a dork. Until tomorrow, everyone.
Until tomorrow.
Love you.
Love you. Okay, bye, everybody.